Do you know 1 kilogram of uranium can power a house for more than 166 years? When compared with coal, 1 kilogram can power a house only for a day. Okay, that's a fantastic thing. But the problem with uranium is that it's a very scarce resource and the same could even be used to develop nuclear bombs. So to prevent that, in the year 1968 July 1st, around 59 countries came together to sign a treaty called Non-Proliferation Treaty to ban the development of nuclear bombs. Slowly 191 countries signed the treaty, making uranium a very critical asset and kept under tight surveillance to trade. This made uranium more scarce, and the matter of fact is that India does not have a good reserves of uranium of their own. So if there is such a shortage supply of uranium, then why does Indian government is pushing so much on the nuclear energy? Is it even sustainable? And what is this Bharat Small Reactors and how India can create infinite energy through this program?
Our government will partner with the private sector for 1. Setting up Bharat Small Reactors. 2. Research and development of Bharat Small Modular Reactor. And 3. Research and development of newer technologies for nuclear energy.
In today's video, we'll discuss how Dr. Homi Bhabha solved the problem of India's short supply of uranium. Next, we'll discuss India's 3-stage nuclear program to create infinite energy. Next, what is Bharat Small Reactors? And lastly, how BSR will help to achieve India's dream of creating infinite energy. So let's begin. Okay, I want to start this video with a huge emotion of gratitude to this man. I think you guessed it right, Dr. Homi J Bhabha, the architect of India's nuclear energy program. But the reason is not because he created India's nuclear energy program, but at the condition he dared to dream to create such an ambitious project when India was facing uranium crisis. And if you have seen the series The Rocket Boys, you already know the story. But I want to put the history in today's context of Bharat Small Reactors. In the year 1968, July 1st, US and USSR presented the first draft of Non-Proliferation Treaty in the UN with a very discriminatory condition. The condition was only the countries who have tested their nuclear weapon before 1st January 1967 can have their nuclear weapons, and the rest will never create atomic bomb ever. This included USA, UK, USSR, China and France. And China had already tried to invade India in the year 1962. So it did not make any sense to India, and India did not sign this treaty. But the consequences of this was that non-signing members were prohibited to trade in any nuclear technology and resources. So India was forbidden to trade in uranium, which is the most critical resource to create nuclear energy, and which was already very scarce in India. That was the situation when Dr. Homi J Bhabha created India's 3-stage nuclear energy program. And the solution that he gave at that time is making headlines today. The method to create infinite energy using Indian raw materials. He said, quote unquote, the total reserves of thorium in India amount to over 5 lakh tons or 500 tons in the readily extractable form, while the known reserves of uranium are less than a tenth of this. The aim of long-range atomic power program in India must therefore be to base the nuclear power generation as soon as possible on thorium rather than uranium. India is home to the largest thorium reserves in the world. They are in the form of monazite, mostly in the beaches of Kerala and Orissa. So Dr. Homi J Bhabha proposed a 3-stage method to utilize thorium instead of uranium to produce nuclear energy. Once this program was successful, the 3rd stage can produce infinite energy using thorium. And from the inception of the nuclear program, India worked on creating nuclear energy using thorium. So in order to understand India's national strategy with Bharat Small Reactors, first we have to understand India's 3-stage nuclear program. Let's look at the basics. All the 3 stages of the nuclear program require 2 core elements. One is fissile element and the other is fertile element. There is a very simple difference. Fissile element is like gunpowder and the fertile element is like wood. Even a small ignition can burn the gunpowder, but it takes higher ignition to burn wood. That's why we need both fissile and fertile element in the reactor. Fissile element can burn immediately and can burn the fertile element slowly. Okay, that's the basics. Let's understand stage by stage now. In the first stage, natural uranium is used as fuel in the pressurized heavy water reactors. Interestingly, natural uranium consists of both a fissile element uranium-235 and fertile element uranium-238. That's why it's a very popular choice for generating nuclear energy. Now in the process of fission in the reactor, plutonium and uranium-238 is formed as byproduct with heat. The heat is used to produce electricity and the byproduct are used in the next stage after cooling down. 1 kg of fuel in this stage can produce around 1500 megawatt hour of electricity. But the problem with the first stage is that it requires huge reserves of uranium for energy generation. And like we have discussed before, we do not have that much of uranium reserves. That's why Dr. Homi J Bhabha proposed a solution. He said instead of uranium, we can even use thorium for the same process. But unlike uranium, which has both fissile and fertile element, thorium is only a fertile element. So we need fissile element for thorium to burn. That's why we move to the second stage to create the stock of fissile element for thorium to burn. Now the second stage. Look, in the first stage, we got plutonium and uranium-238 as byproduct. Interestingly, plutonium is a fissile element and uranium-238 a fertile element. But the quantity of plutonium is so small that it cannot burn all the uranium-238. But if we add a bit more plutonium, we can burn them again. So in the second stage, plutonium and uranium-238 goes through a fission process in a fast breeder reactor, producing heat again and more plutonium as byproduct. Fast breeder reactor helps to produce more plutonium than it consumes. So now we can create a good stock of plutonium that is a fissile element, and we can even generate electricity in this process. 1 kg of fuel in this stage can produce 12,000 megawatt hour of energy. But plutonium is still not an efficient fissile element for burning thorium because of multiple technical reasons. We need another fissile element called uranium-233 for thorium to burn. So during the fission process in the second stage, a small amount of thorium is also introduced for reaction, which produces uranium-233 as byproduct. Now this uranium-233 is a fissile element which can be used in the third stage. So the main objective of the second stage is to create a fissile element plutonium to burn the fertile byproduct created in the first stage. And during this process, create a stock of another fissile element called uranium-233 to be used in the third stage. Now in the third stage, the fissile stock of uranium-233 we created in the second stage is burnt with thorium. And interestingly, when thorium is burnt with U-233, a very good quantity of U-233 is produced as byproduct, which ultimately helps to burn more thorium, producing more U-233, and the cycle continues to produce energy in an infinite cycle. 1 kg of fuel in this process can produce up to 15,000 megawatt hour of energy. This is enough energy to supply electricity to a small Indian town for a month. We only need uranium-233 to start the third stage. Once we achieve that, India could be self-reliant in energy because we have enough thorium reserves to produce more uranium-233 and continue the cycle for a very long time. So now the question that comes here is, what is this Bharat Small Reactor and how will it help in the three-stage program? Well, in simple terms, Bharat Small Reactors are the smaller version of the first stage of the three-stage program. If we compare it with traditional nuclear reactors, which can produce 700 to 1000 megawatts, BSR can produce 50 to 300 megawatts of energy. Now the question is, how BSR will help us to achieve the dream of infinite cycle of energy? There are three reasons how Bharat Small Reactors can help us to achieve infinite energy, and the third reason is the most important reason. Firstly, economic design. Most of the BSR parts are designed in factories, which means it can be installed faster and economically even in the remotest region of our country, where large reactors may not be feasible. Plus, their modular design can easily be scaled and adapted to all the three stages of the India's nuclear energy program. Secondly, safety. Their small size inherently reduces the risk of large-scale accidents. Plus, they are designed as mini reactors which requires minimal human intervention. In fact, it can even be installed underground and can operate automatically in most of the cases. Thirdly, creating fuel stock for the third stage. Look, India's nuclear three-stage program has a very big constraint. The byproducts created in each stage requires 5 to 10 years of cooling period before it can be used in the next stage. But honestly, New India cannot afford to wait that long if we want to achieve the goal of third stage of unlimited cycle of energy. And that's where the Bharat Small Reactors come into picture. They can be installed faster across the nation, giving us a higher operational capability to stock up uranium-233 and plutonium to push the third stage. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Dr. Homi J Bhabha is an inspiration who has converted scarcity into opportunity for our nation. India is the topmost nation in innovating thorium-based nuclear energy, but it's been decades we are lagging to complete the three-stage nuclear program envisioned by him. Recently, Prime Minister has witnessed the commencement of the core loading of the second stage program in Kalapakkam in Chennai. What's your opinion? Why we are so much delayed in the three-stage nuclear program? And will Bharat Small Reactors will fasten that process? Do let us know in the comment section and also give your valuable advice on how we can improve as a channel. Thank you and see you again.